Welcome to the Inside Scoop, your one-stop shop for cracking the leadership code. Have you ever wondered what those conversations are like in the boardroom? Curious about the secret sauce successful executives possess? On the Inside Scoop podcast, we sit down with successful executives, getting their unique perspective on what it takes to be a good leader. They'll share their hard-won wisdom, the crucial competencies needed to thrive as a leader, and the unexpected lessons learned along the way. Here, we unlock the secrets of the executive suite. We get the inside track directly from the leaders themselves. In each episode, we'll dissect the essential skills needed to go from manager to leader, offering a leader's perspective on the challenges, triumphs, and unexpected wisdom they've acquired. The Inside Scoop, leadership lessons, served fresh.
Glad you joined us today for another episode of the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Eduardo Bryant. Today, we're going to focus our attention in an area where leadership isn't often thought about. That's smart cities, and we're going to focus a lot on the underserved communities. Our guest today is really an expert in that area and dedicating so much of his time there. What we do encourage you to do is, as you're listening to this, if you hear things that you like, that resonates with you, we invite you to subscribe and to become part of our listening audience. This podcast is available wherever you get your podcast. So without any further ado, I want to dive right into this. And I'm going to do a lot of learning along with the audience on smart cities and really what are some areas and best practices for management and managing when you're dealing with underserved communities. Our guest is none other than Mike Allison. Let's welcome him in right now. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure and it's an honor, and I'm looking forward to it. And I know that I'm going to have a whole page full of notes when we're all done, because I'm here to learn as well. But before we get started, I always like to ask my guests, what are they currently reading? Things that's keeping them up to date in their industry. Share with us. What are you reading right now?
I read a lot of smart city publications, a lot of government funding and grant funding that's coming to help the underserved, as well as help communities and city leadership. So I work with a numerous amount of material that I study on a day-to-day basis just to keep up with the trends and the changing environment and use cases around smart cities, really to help communities become more effective and dive into digital transformation.
You know what? That sounds really good. And at your level, VP of sales and working in this whole space, that's got to be an exciting and rewarding area just to be focused on.
It is exciting because you really get to make a difference, not only with the city leadership, but with the community and the residents as well. And by doing that, you get to focus on helping the underserved, helping people that can't really get access to the internet. They can't get a job application in. They can't do education from home. They can't get healthcare at home. So getting them access to the internet in a lot of communities is very critical. And by helping them get access, you help them create wealth long-term for generations to come. So they could get educated, get a better job, find out what they need to do to succeed, and really get access to all the knowledge and education available throughout the world.
I tell you, that's an area that is a humanitarian level of work in some cases, and certainly can make you feel real good. And I know we don't focus that much as we probably should on that type of area. It's one thing to be a VP within a corporation and focus just on your employees. But when the corporation is focused on helping the community, that's a whole nother area. So I'm excited to even hear more about it. And I'm sure your journey to get to where you are and your lifestyle and everything that you've done has been probably quite a journey, to say the least. And I'd like to take a moment and share with the audience, what has your journey been like? In other words, how did you, Mike, get to where you are today?
Well, part of it was I started off in the military, coming from a real modest family and didn't have a lot of access to education and tools. And then I joined the military and got to become, it transformed my life, joining the U.S. Marines. And it allowed me to learn avionics, electronics, and air traffic control radar. And that allowed me to set a engineering foundation for my entire career. Then I utilized that to become an instructor in telecommunications and radar, and taught to the military and the Navy. And it allowed me to build a foundation of really presenting and projecting and talking to people and understanding their needs. And I migrated from that to become a sales engineer. And I really used my technical background to be a teacher, a mentor to my customer base. And then I would learn their customer applications and use cases, and I'd help them transform their business. So then I used that in a kind of a fear of failure, tried to be the best at everything and every job I ever did, and worked harder than everybody else so I could really develop myself into a seasoned engineer that became a trusted advisor to my customers. And that led me to opportunities to go into sales. And those opportunities, I waited and learned from the best of sales people around me. I'd pick everybody's brain. I would work with them. I would learn from them. So I adapted different styles from a lot of different top performers and turned that into my own performance and my own style, and really allowed me to become the #1 sales rep 6 out of 10 years at Nortel Corporation. And I was in the top 5 the next few years, and really had an excellent sales career as being a top performer or a hunter. And that gave me the opportunity to dive into leadership positions, first in engineering, then into sales, and then running territories and running North America.
Wow. Where did that drive come from?
It came from perseverance that I learned in the military, trying to succeed, and knowing that if you didn't pass and you didn't go to the next level, you would not make it and be either pushed back down to a menial job, or you'd accelerate and get the benefits of everything. So I took that ability to learn to the next level in my career at every opportunity, trying to be the best. Because if you shoot to be the best and you don't quite make it, at least you're in the top percentile. And that's what I tried. And it's been very successful for me over the years.
I think the military is such a wonderful place to start because it does build in people, men and women, that drive to succeed. And when we talk about underserved communities and smart cities, there's so many in those communities who just don't have that drive, that inner something, right? Gumption, if you will, that will help them get to that next level. And for you, it sounded like it started there in the military. And of course, as you progress from there and gone into different things, it's been a good godsend for you. Sounds like for you to just excel across the board. I believe I heard you say you were a top salesperson. Did you say 7 out of 10 years?
6 out of 10, and in the top 5 the other 4 years. So I was I would average 400 to 700% of my quota year over year, and got a lot of accolades with that. But what you get with that kind of performance is respect from your corporation. So it opens doors, and really applying the methodology to do the right thing each and every time, to do it with integrity and confidence, really helps you accelerate. So people follow you. You don't necessarily have to be a hard stance leader. You could be a collaborative leader and drive an organization to the next level.
So now you're hitting on something key there. So when you get into leadership and being a collaborative leader, and I like the way you phrased it, a hard driver. Yeah, there's a few other words for the hard drivers, but we won't focus on those. But a collaborative leader is one that obviously is, you part of the team. You're working with everyone, and that's the respect that you have earned. Let's take that and connect it to what we're focused on today. That is smart cities, as well as the underserved communities. I want to break that into kind of 2 sections. Give us a little insight into some of the work that you're doing around that. What does that look like? What does that feel like? So for the person that may find themselves in an area of their life where they say, you know what? No one's paying attention to me, or I don't have much of an opportunity, I don't have a shot. What can we do to help them? What does that landscape look like?
Well, I think you got to approach everything in your life, with one simple goal in mind, understanding what the community really needs and what the vision of the city leadership is. And what I do is get to know the city leadership. I talk to individual stakeholders at the mayor's office, a lot of times the mayor, and help them create a vision for where they want to take the city. And then we take a blueprint, and it's an approach that we develop a roadmap for them to step into smart city applications. And you do that by leading. So you become the trusted advisor of the city leadership, and you show them what is possible, how they could fund it, and how to put it together so they have a clear, concise vision for the future. And that future also contains a component to helping their underserved communities. So by leveraging technologies to do fiber optics at a home with high-speed internet access, they could solve the underserved problem in their community. In COVID, there was a huge lapse of access to the internet for their communities. They couldn't get health care. They couldn't work from home. They couldn't do telehealth. They couldn't do online education. So what the access to the internet gives them is the ability to operate even when you're in a bubble and you can't leave. And by doing that, you can maintain and continue your career and your education even when there's a pandemic. So what we want to do with the city is make them become successful, not only to give access to the internet to the underserved, but it helps create economic development. It helps create public safety in those cities as well. There's been a lot of instances where schools had shootings. With the right type of technologies and smart lighting, video and video analytics, gunshot detection, we can make our public safety and our public schools safer, our parks safer, and give community access to the internet from anywhere within that city. So what it helps them do is really create a better environment for public safety, as well as, sustainability in the city. But the key thing there is you got to show the city how you're going to help them save money, how you're going to bring these applications on, how to protect privacy, and make it a secure environment. And with that philosophy, you approach it from a big picture standpoint, not trying to sell a tactical product. Your product sales will come later as you create that trusted advisor relationship and that blueprint for the city's leadership. So it's very good to understand the community, what's happening in the community, where the community has issues that need to be resolved, and then to build a book of use cases to address them. So you're selling an approach and a vision instead of a product or technology.
We're going to talk a little bit about that because there are different approaches when it's not a product and it is, as you call it, a vision. Sounds like you've got the ear of city officials, city planners, government officials, even the mayor. So now you're in a leadership position. Sometimes people don't realize that that is a leadership position because you now have to effectuate what others are going to do. And that's kind of like leading without authority because you don't get to do it, but you now have to influence them. So there's a component of influencing people that come into play when you're working with all of these different people in order to get them to do something which we deem to be very beneficial for the community. So let's talk a little bit about how that leadership works. What does that look like? How does that play? Because you can't just go up and say to the mayor, do this, right? You've got to now lead from a different perspective.
Yes, when you do that, you've got to really have a lot of confidence, and you got to have a lot of knowledge, and you got to connect. And everybody connects differently with different personality types. So as a person or a salesperson that's approaching a city leadership council, for example, or different people in the leadership of that city, you got to adjust your style to that individual because everybody wants to hear it in their language. So you have to adapt and do multi-level selling and really adjust your approach to the person you're talking with. If you're talking to a technical person, you want to have a technical, approach. When you're talking to a financial person, you want to have an analytics and data driven approach. When you're talking to a city leader, you want to have a visionary approach to his city and how you could help him with your platform. So what you've got to do is establish credibility across the board with these different leaders in that community, in that city, and as well as there's more than just selling external. You got to sell your vision internally to your organization and influence them to invest in the time and effort to do engineering, design work, help setting up the use cases and spending time with that city. So there's a lot of, internal selling that you have to do. And a lot of times you may not have all the parts or pieces to do it. And you need other third party products that you need to make your solution better and stronger. So then you need to sell that vision to your channel partners, to your third party, product providers, and weave them into it to make your story stronger and your solution set stronger for the city. So it's not only selling to the city, it's selling to all the companies that support you as well, and bringing them all together to create a nice solution for the city that it drives value for the city.
What you're talking about has a lot to do with not only being in management and how you manage, but also in sales. Because let's face it, you got to sell something. And when you're talking about sales, there's personalities, there's chemistry, there's style, management styles, selling styles. And you talked about being able to kind of fluctuate and match whoever you're with. So if we look at, say, the sales side of it, we've got sales reps out there and they sell everything from, you name it, medical equipment all the way down to pencils. So when you're selling something, your client, your customer is going to have a different whatever. They could be, you talked about being financial, they could be analytical, they could be just data driven. But those people are the ones that when you go in to approach them, I'm going to assume that you or your team has got to now adjust their approach in this way so that they can connect. Because I heard you say the word connect. Sounds like connectivity is vitally important when you're trying to move a vision through, say, the city planners.
Exactly. And there's a lot of different ways to connect now with your client and your customer. It's, you can never, undermine the ability to have a personal relationship one-on-one live with them. And it always helps to get that early on in the relationship. But you also need to touch them with emails, text messages, video calls. So you can leverage technology to connect with them, to develop a relationship. But don't try to shortcut that by just staying in your office and not getting out to spend time with them. And that's the first mistake that a salesperson could make, is they think they could do and drive and influence people through a video call. It doesn't work that way in a lot of cases, because when you need a favor, it's that personal relationship, taking them out to dinner, spending time with them, understanding their goals and what they need to do to be successful, and tailoring your approach around that with them. And always be with the one and spend attention to the one you're with. People get distracted nowadays. They'll be talking to a customer. They've flown out there to spend a lot of time, and they'll start text messaging in the middle of a meeting with somebody else. A customer wants you to be there and be present with them. And a lot of sales professionals look for the shortcut, look for the silver bullet, and then they try to bypass the harder things, like having a dinner at night, inconvenient their family, spending time, personal time, getting to know their customer when they could be at home with the kids. And sometimes it takes a sacrifice to do that. And I think a lot of sales professionals are taking shortcuts nowadays, which is going to cost them in the long run, because when they actually need a PO really to make a difference for their organization, and you don't have that personal relationship, it makes it almost impossible to get it over the phone.
So now you're talking about some really good nuggets that have to do with sales. And that's a whole area that we could even get into, is that being present in the moment. That is being there and showing and giving your attention to that person. Because, many of us, we operate on the principle of multitasking. And to
That's right.
us, multitasking means keep talking, I can hear you, and at the same time, I'm doing something else. Well, you really can't give that same level of attention when you're trying to do something else.
You can't. And what really happens there is you miss the golden nuggets of the conversation. So you might have 70% by doing that, but that 30% could be the critical 30% that differentiates you, so that you have to do it, and I call it love the one you're with. Don't, focus on the person you're with 100% of the time, and cater everything around them and make them feel good, because it may be your only shot in front of them. It could be one of many, so you're setting an example, but it could be your last opportunity with them. And no one likes to leave a sales call and not be able to go back. Your number one goal should be always to get a follow-up, get the next meeting. So you're going into a meeting with a goal to get the next meeting, not necessarily to sell something, but you're selling the next step in your process, so you could expand and go wider and deeper in the account.
That's a great management tip. And we tell reps all the time, you want to get some type of win, even if it's a small win, and you want to get something that is considered to be next steps. So we tell that to reps all the time. And from a management standpoint, we try to encourage them that don't go in and, try to eat the lion all in one shot. It's got to be little by little. And if you do what you said, get that next meeting, then that's a great way of doing it. I've quoted this before, and I love this quote, and it comes from Maya Angelou. She said, people will not remember much of what you say, but they will remember the way you made them feel. And when you're in a meeting and you're with someone and your attention is not devoted strictly to them, that is contact. That is paying attention and responding to things, noticing certain things, making the conversation very fluid, recognizing that they are important, giving them the respect because they're giving you their time, which is something they can never get back. None of us can. When you do that, you make them feel warm, welcome, and that they matter. But any of that distractive stuff that you were talking about, like texting somebody else, is clearly a signal to them that they just aren't important enough.
That's correct. And it could be a little thing. You could pay attention to a picture of one of their kids, behind you, like you have there, right? And then you could strike up a conversation, ask them about their kids, where they go to school, and connect with them at a personal level, right? And don't try to sell them, listen. So you want to listen to them and totally hear it. That's why you have to be present. If you're multitasking and you're not listening, your number one goal as a salesperson is to listen, listen, listen. And if you come out of there and you listen, they're going to tell you what they need, what they want. If you connect with them, they'll give you the keys to the kids, the city, and allow you to help them and go deeper and wider. And that's what you really need to go to the next level. So you have to look at a sales process in phases. It's connecting from the beginning, it's working the middle of the sales cycle, and it's working to create a buyer, not necessarily closing a customer. It's about creating a buyer's experience and making them a buyer and feel good about buying instead of being sold. And that's another important lesson.
No, it really is. And that's a good one too. So as a manager, when you're in leadership, and let's say you're leading a team, as you've undoubtedly done for years and years and years, when you're leading a team of people and they're reporting to you, now you can give these types of nuggets. I call them pearls of wisdom. These are the things that can help people be able to progress. And again, doesn't matter what it really is. Talk to us a little bit about smart cities. That's a term that we've heard, but I'm not sure that we all know exactly what that means and what that looks like and how that differentiates from some other things when we talk about and we use that phrase smart city?
Well, making a city smarter is making it more sustainable, making it more efficient, creating a new approach to everything in the city. From smart parking, if you go into a city, one of the biggest challenges you have is where am I going to park? If you have smart parking, for example, and an app guides you to a reserved spot, you'd feel more comfortable going into the city knowing you have a spot, you know where you're going to park, and it's reserved for you. Smart lighting allows you not to waste time and money having cars sitting in an empty intersection, but allows traffic to flow more efficiently. So you can get around the city, have less congestion in the city and monitor safety in intersections and really have a great approach to, making the city flow from that standpoint. Smart waste, for example, you see trucks going by at the dumpsters every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, if it's full or not full. Smart waste will allow you only to go there when they need to be picked up. So you can reduce, in some cases, 1/3 of your trash deployments in a city and keep it cleaner than keeping the garbage there all the time. And then making the trash, the waste management people go to every single trash can every single week. And that's a waste of productivity. But smart cities really are about cities connecting their communities back into their databases to give them access to information, to have Wi-Fi in public spaces, to have smart lighting to reduce lights and vision, to reduce electricity and consumption, to have the smart lighting applications that allow video analytics and video to see disturbances in the city that can strike a 911 call. So if there's a disturbance, you don't really need facial recognition to see somebody's chasing somebody down the street with video. Video analytics will allow you to trigger that. Gunshot detection allows you to trigger that. So having smart waste management, smart lighting, smart access to community centers, to having kiosks for community information, all of that is making the city more productive, more viable, and it creates economic development. So companies want to be in that city. They want to have their employees working in that city. So it creates job opportunities and, manufacturing to come back and new businesses to locate in that city. And to do that with a high-speed network infrastructure really creates a greater sense of public safety. So it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But if you look at it from a systematic and use case perspective, it's creating a better city environment that's more efficient and safer. And it allows access to the communities to get, better productivity all the way around, even dealing with the government itself.
Given your experience in that area, I'm curious, how is that working rolled out across the country? Other cities and communities are doing it, certainly to some level. Do you have kind of a example, or of some cities that might be really at the forefront of this and really progressive?
Yes, LA's been very progressive with smart city initiatives, as well as there's a lot going on in New York at the University of Columbia. They're doing smart city initiatives and training, and they actually created a lab to roll a certain district in New York to have smart city technologies and testing. So they invite people to come in and use their test bed to create an environment. But what's really hard for cities right now is the way that the decision making is. There's, everybody has a piece of the smart city in different departments. That's why you have to sell it at the top. So you have to not sell at the department level unless you have a very transactional product, but you got to sell the vision at the higher levels that, control all the departments. So you can give them a smart city solution. Now there's a lot of government grants and funding and infrastructure funding that can help drive that. So you have to be knowledgeable about the government funding that's going on, where you can leverage that to reduce the price for the city. But it's really hard with the procurement laws. So that's why driving smart cities, we kind of use a public-private partnership approach that private investors will want to come in and invest in the city, collect information, and do a revenue share that really helps the city get more bang for their buck by leveraging private investment in that city infrastructure, so they could sell advanced technologies throughout the community and make a profit from it and share with the revenue. So the city doesn't have to drive the internet access. They need an ISP and a private investor that comes in, and then they could drive that sale in collaboration with the city. So the city doesn't necessarily have to be the end customer at the end of the day, but you sold a public-private partnership that is bigger than just one tactical sales approach. And that takes relationships with, multiple companies to put together, but it allows you to have credibility building a coalition of partners to solve problems for your customers.
Do you feel that in underserved communities, the smart city approach is being applied there equally as well as it is in other parts of the city? Or have you noticed that maybe the underserved communities are getting missed to some degree?
Well, they're getting missed for a lot of different reasons. They're getting missed because a lot of the major carriers and internet service providers, they follow the money. So they go to the higher affluent neighborhoods and don't invest in the technology infrastructure in the underserved and lower income communities. And that gives the lower income communities a disadvantage because their technology isn't enabled to do higher speeds, and they need to be, totally retrofitted. And where a high income neighborhood has fiber optic internet access at multiple gig speeds, and it's almost not fair. So we're trying to, take those barriers down and provide fiber to everybody in the city at an affordable rate. So that allows them to have super high speed internet access at an affordable price, and then leverage government funding to help with that. So there's a lot of opportunity to do that in cities. But the United States is far behind some of our European and worldwide cities around the world. They really take smart cities a lot more seriously. They have a whole more strategic approach. We've been doing smart cities around the world for a long time. And they, now, the US is starting to catch up because there's a lot of infrastructure investment and funding coming along. You really take a smart city approach and you can make it a smart port approach to make the ports more efficient, leveraging technologies to make the port, be more strategic in the way they take and move, containers off of the ships, and using advanced technologies to let them move around the port more efficiently, create autonomous vehicle and driving in that port. It's the same with the airport. You make a smart airport. And you apply the same concepts. You use high-speed technologies, wireless technologies, and data center technologies to make your whole airport experience more efficient, more connected, and safer in the process.
High-speed trains. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking to myself, there are a lot of areas that can kind of fall within that. Obviously, we have electric vehicles. You talked about stoplights. I'm going to assume that the stoplights, then a lot of cities have roundabouts. That's something that is, more in Europe, where they've got a lot of roundabouts. But I'm starting to see more and more of those here in the United States that prevent you from having to stop at a light and to do some of those things. And I know some of the delivery companies, they've constructed their route where you make right-hand turns so that you don't have to stop at a stoplight and wait for the light to change before you can make a left hand. That could be a couple of minutes. If you add that up after, 40, 50 lights, you've got, another hour or so of actually wasted time versus let's just go around the corner, right turns. And so with regards to that, I'm thinking about, where does high-speed rail come into play? If it does, is that being thought of it? Because we don't have the bullet train in the US. We don't have a lot of that. Now, New York has a very good subway system, obviously, and some other places, but that's just, you don't go to Minnesota and get that. Those things aren't
No.
there. Where would you say that falls into play?
Well, that's going to be a critical in the future, not only with, not only with trains, but with air and access in the air as well. And satellite technologies are helping with that. But to really make a smart train, you need a lot of technology with that. So you got to rebuild the infrastructure. You've got to look at the technology infrastructure. You have to make a seamless wireless solution around the corridor, and you got to do integrated operations in the train. You're going to see autonomous vehicles and autonomous driving and technology really that brings computing resources to the edge of the network that allows them to communicate faster, quicker, and more efficient with the network technologies available to provide connectivity to make all those operations more efficient. So a part of rebuilding the train, it takes more than a faster train. It takes a technology infrastructure behind it, so it makes it seamless connectivity and technology, because those trains in the future aren't going to be driven by a human. They're going to be autonomous trains. The trucking system are going to be autonomous. So you're going to see a lot, the shipping and manufacturing and robotics, all of that is driven by a technology infrastructure. All of those things are at the edge of the network, are the use cases that allow access to the network, but you need that technology footprint and infrastructure, and a high quality one to really drive that smart, transportation.
We're not going to know the world in 20 years, Mike.
It's changing. It's changing so fast. And the number one thing I would tell anybody is you have to stay on the next wave. And you can't, always just look forward. You've got to look backwards to remember where you're at, but you've got to jump the next wave. And that takes you out of your comfort zone, but it puts you in the next emerging technology, the next new thing, the next wave of technology infrastructure. Like AI is at the beginning of the wave. If you jump into that now, you're going to be at the beginning of the next wave, not the end of the last one. So everybody's worried about, my job's going to end when AI takes over. Well, it's only going to end if you don't adapt and leverage AI to your advantage. So there's always an instance where you have to make a choice in your career to jump into an uncomfortable situation to ride the next wave. And it can be a little risky than being in your comfortable box, but you have to get out of that box and go on to the next wave to advance your career. And that's the best advice I could give anybody. And that's what I've always tried to do. I tried to stay at the forefront of the next wave and then be an expert at that. So you could ride that for a sustainable amount of time until it's time to adapt and change. So, that's pivotal in your career, is when you make that decision to jump on the next wave, when it's critical in your, decision, whether to, take the next wave or wait for the next one. Sometimes you're not ready for the next wave. And if you jump too soon, you could hurt your career. And, but one thing's for sure, you need a leader that kind of works with you in a collaborative approach that helps you with your strengths and makes them stronger, helps them with your weaknesses, and coaches to make them your strengths. So each individual person sells in their own way. Coaching and mentoring them should be done in an individual manner based on everybody's strengths and weaknesses. So if your leader's not collaborating, how he could help you be more successful, you may look at your leadership, because all they want is numbers, and all they want to do is manage up. And what you need to do is make sure you're driving your salespeople to be more effective, developing them, growing them in their career, and setting them up for their next step in their career. And with that comes success and high sales numbers if you do that correctly.
Well, the one thing we can say about a wave is it's coming and you can't stop it. When a wave is coming, it will come ashore. There's nothing you can do to prevent that wave from actually coming in. And so it's coming in, like you were saying, as a manager, that's kind of like your number one job there. You're developing talent, equipping them, setting them up for success. And you talked about making sure that they are successful here so that they can ride that wave to whatever's coming. And I love the way you put it, be on the forefront of that. Don't be at the end of it, be on the forefront. And those are things that are coming because we can't stop it. I mean, as we said just a moment ago, we're not going to recognize the world in 15, 20 years. Self-driving cars, you talked about the trains are not going to be driven by a human, they'll be all self-driven. It's just, I mean, trucks will be that way, automation, but you can't stop it. It's coming. And other countries, they're on top of it and they're riding that wave as well. So we've got to stay ahead. Can't take time to try to play catch up. You'll never catch up. The train will have left you and be gone. And from a management standpoint, I think that's important that we remember that we're trying to push people into these areas. Smart cities, I think, is a way that, things are changing and things are happening. Underserved communities obviously have to have some help and assistance, and then they have to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps and make sure that they're contributing their part. And so from a manager standpoint, I want to ask a little bit about, as a manager in this space, trying to prepare people for what's coming. And we know that obviously the wave is here. How do we as managers help people to make sure that they're on the forefront and not at the rear end, staying ahead of the game and pushing forward? What can we do as leaders to really help them get there?
Well, it takes a lot of thought. It takes a strategy. It takes a plan. And that comes with your sales process and your sales cadence. That, for example, have regular staff meetings. Use them as educational instead of forecast driven. Take time to understand what they're doing in their accounts by having a systematic approach to account management and doing account planning. And the account planning tools, and everybody talks about it, the manager needs to be present so he can make real-time advice in a account planning session that helps that sales rep go to the next level in that account, where they need to help them break through. Some salespeople, if you look at a sales process and break it down from 1 to 6, sales reps have different weaknesses at certain stages in a sales process. So if you understand that, one of your salesperson is weak at step 2, which could be going to the discovery part of an initial sales. You got in the door, but now you got to take the account to the next level. So you help them with those skills that get them to step 3 and 4, which they could be great at, but they can't get past step 2. You've got to understand, where that salesperson's strengths and weaknesses are. And you do that with account planning. You get involved in their deals. A lot of times where you have complex technology sales, there's deal reviews. You don't leave them in those deal reviews by themselves, so other areas of the business can undress them and try to make them unsuccessful or not confident. Lead by example. Get out in front. If a salesperson has trouble closing, stay involved in their high-end sales, and you got to be careful you can't dilute yourself too much. Touch base with the account with them in the beginning, keep touching base with them incrementally, and then help them by establishing a relationship with the client and lead out front, and then help them with closing the deal. So you'll be a more effective leader. And a lot of organizations don't let you do that. But if you don't do that, you don't get your high value targets at a higher qualified, sales percentage. You want to increase your time and your close ratios and work with high qualified customers and high qualified deals by staying involved with their deals and how they're progressing in their deals and the relationships they're having in the account. You can really help them accelerate their career. So, for example, a lot of sales reps that I've worked with over time, they were average salespeople. When I got done with them, a lot of them would have 200-300% of their number. They'd make, 3-4x what they normally would, and they'd go to the next level in their career. That's when you've been successful, when you take somebody who averaged 80 to 90% of their quota and made them a top performer. And it really makes a difference in their life and their confidence and their approach to everything. And that's critical as a leader to give that to your team.
That's solid advice. I think every sales company needs a solid sales process.
Exactly. Without one, you don't have a guiding light, but your sales process has to be driven from the top down. It can't be a process that's given to salespeople and expecting them to follow. It's got to be a methodology that's pushed from the top down and managed from the top down. So everybody's on the same page, the same language. They know that step 4 of a sales process is this, and this is what we need to do to get the deal ready to close, right? So they need to understand, where everybody in the organization needs to be on the same page. And the only way to do it is with a great sales methodology and process in place.
Solid, good information. This has been great, Mike. This has been awesome. I learned so much about smart cities and certainly about what the future looks like with regards to helping to, serve some of the underprivileged communities and underserved communities. This has been good. I think you've provided some really good information, and I love the whole discussion there about a sales process and what salespeople can do and how they can better equip themselves to be successful. And, as a VP yourself, you understand how important it is to lead people. So this has been good. Before we sign off, I want to see if you have any final remarks and comments you'd like to give. I'll give you an opportunity to say anything that you didn't say and wanted to say, but floor is yours again, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Eduardo. I really appreciate the time. I think you got to look at everything as the glass is half full, not half empty. A lot of times, a salesperson will look at every reason not to do the deal, not to spend the time, not to do the hard work. And if you have that approach, you're going to let really important and big opportunities slip through your fingers. So take a look at the, opportunity as the glass is half full. What can you do to make a difference? And then go make that difference, and then drive your organization and lead your organization to follow you. Because if you're a sales leader, you're driving the organization, you're creating your own business within that organization. And the more influence you have on them, the longer and harder they'll let you go in the account, and you'll be more successful. But always look at it positively with a positive approach, and you'll be way more successful.
Thank you very much. We certainly appreciate that. And I want to thank the audience for taking time to just tune in. I appreciate that. We look forward to having leaders like Mike on board. He's executive vice presidents. These are the guys that are in the boardroom, and they're having conversations that are obviously visionary and making decisions to affect the company. And certainly when the company has a positive effect on the community in a multifaceted ways, such as in this case with Mike, the smart cities and serving underserved communities and doing those types of things, it's very beneficial. So if you enjoyed it, subscribe. We encourage you to do so and become part of our viewing audience. Well, until we get together again on another episode of The Inside Scoop, we want to thank you very much for joining us and for being part of our audience today. Bye for now.
For more exclusive leadership insights, be sure to subscribe to The Inside Scoop on YouTube and Spotify. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that share button and spread the word. See you next time on The Inside Scoop.